Hello, everybody. We're just going to double check that we're live. I'm certain we are, but we need to check as always. Who's that weird dude on my phone? It's like a, what would you call that? Like a TikTok type thing. Are we live? Are we live? There we are. We're live. So who's going to be first on? So we'll wait before we jump into this to get a couple of names up in the chat. No, I don't think I'm going to do a giveaway today.
No, not today.
No, and sometimes I give away like a free buff to whoever. So, oh, it's Mark anyway. He's already got one. Awesome. How's it going, Marky V? Hopefully you're doing well, my friend. Are you in Italy, Bri here, and a better looking Yeti? Better looking than me, or better looking than my usual partner, or both? Clarify. Yeah, so hello everybody, how's it going? Obviously, yeah, Andy's not here today, so we brought in Jody, which is just as handy because Jody has more to say on this subject than Andy anyway. So yeah, we're talking today about sort of those little or big injuries that kind of can get in the way of your training, that can get in the way of your actual trip, how to manage them, how to prevent them, and then obviously any questions you guys have about any aspect at all. It is handy if it's about injuries, but if it's not, don't worry about it. You can ask us about anything. Drop them in. Marky V actually in the UK today. Stuart Taylor. Jambi. I wonder if that's Jambo.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Do you reckon that's Jambo? Yeah, unless Jambi's a word that I haven't actually come across before.
I think Stuart's going soon, isn't he, to Killy?
Yeah. Is he?
Yeah.
It's a good knowledge.
Yeah.
Good knowledge. We've got Jerome as well. Jerome the Rock God. I feel like he gave that name to himself. You know, it's like when anyone ever says like, yeah, my nickname in high school was Maverick. You know what? It's always a lie. I was going to say something. I was going to say something else then. But yeah, guys, thanks anyway. So we'll jump into it today. Obviously, Andy's not here today. He's off. I think he's attending his sister Steph's graduation.
He is, yeah.
So congratulations, Steph. A lot of hard work in the bank. But we're here to talk about sort of injuries and stuff like that. Have a great day, Chief Yeti. Is he telling Andy that, or
I think so.
am I the chief now that Andy's not here?
Yeah,
Like
I guess
I'm now the painted head. Anyway, yeah, so we wanted to talk about it because our season's about to kick off at the minute. There's a big, huge chunk of people going to Killy. Perhaps I've already been to Nepal. We've had K2 base camp recently. We've got some big peaks coming up, and it's always at this time of year, just before the season starts, that we get contacted by Evertrekkers that have picked up a little niggle or a little injury or something like that, and they have kind of a lot of questions about what that means for the trip. Are they going to be able to do it? Are they not? It's a lot easier if you break your leg. The decision's made for you. What we're probably going to focus on most is that kind of irritating injury. You had one recently, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. So I did actually manage to complete the marathon back in April. I can't believe that was actually this year. It feels like a lifetime ago now.
Manchester.
Yeah, Manchester Marathon. Yeah. But 3 weeks before, I picked up injury in my hamstring. Luckily, it wasn't, a tear or anything like that, because it can be quite nasty. It was more of a repetitive sort of strain. But yeah, so it was about managing that, trying to manage it before the marathon. Luckily, as I said, I did manage to complete it, but it is difficult, especially when you're training so hard for something, you really want to do well, and then you pick up something sort of last minute. It can be really difficult to take.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's plenty of things that you can do. I decided to stop with the running for a couple of weeks. I did more sort of swimming, strength, sort of training and things like that as well, to see if I could sort of manage it. I did go to see somebody about it as well, to see, to get some advice whether I could run with it. But yeah, ultimately, these are the worst. Well, they're not the worst type, but you know what I mean, as in the most annoying type of injuries, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. It's very, Bri there has said one rotator cuff, so I think that's a shoulder injury. It is that exact, like I actually find like those type of injuries are really, really irritating because one of our good friends, Tam, broke his shoulder, and he's ready to go and do Mera Peak, and it's taken a lot of rehab to get to work. And you'd be surprised when you think about just walking.
Yeah.
Like you think, oh yeah, my upper body's going to be fine, but actually it's not. It's all off.
Yeah.
And it feels really weird and awkward. Yeah, I mean, my particular injury was one that it was annoying really because it was rather innocuous. I crashed a mountain bike, and like I've crashed 100 times worse. But this one particular day, it just, the mountain gods didn't, look kindly on me, and then that really damaged my knee quite badly. And it was really kind of, I had to almost like break it down into like manageable chunks about how to try and figure that out. So if you do have an injury that's kind of like waylaid you for a little bit, for me it was like the very first instance when I remember being in A&E, and I called Andy and I was like, Andy, I've really done it this time. Like this is really going to be a nightmare. And then he immediately, he's really good with his mindset and stuff like that. And he really started to try and talk to me about, well, right from that get-go, well, look, it's not over, but what's the next step? What's the next step? Let's get there. And then we'll worry about the one after that.
Yeah.
And I found that really did help. Like it was quite a long recovery process, but I actually think I probably wouldn't have even done it if I knew that whole time that it was going to take me a year.
Yeah.
And it was going to be like awful. So what I did was like, the first step was, well, just kind of like walk without crutches. Okay, that's good. And then what do I do then? Now it's about straightening it and strengthening it. And little goals like that kind of kept me on track. And actually having like something to look forward to, like something in the, in your history that kind of, well, in your future that can like motivate you to get up and train. For me, that was Tuptal.
Yeah.
And I mean, I failed to get to the top, but that wasn't due to the knee. That wasn't due to the knee that time. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. Jerome's made a good comment there. The real difficult, deciding if your minor injury is going to stop your adventure. So who do you ask?
I think that's with that as well. The first thing, even if you do think it's a minor injury, is to maybe have a little rest. It does depend what the injury is, but like this always say about the rest, ice, compression, elevation. Just to see if it is just a little niggle that will go away, or if it is something that a little bit more serious. The worst thing you can do is just keep on sort of straining that, and then it can turn into a bigger injury. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I guess that's it, isn't it? You need to give yourself a little bit of time after every little thing to like. I do agree with Jerome that it is sometimes quite difficult. Like if you've got a bit of a sore knee, then you're like, oh, is that just like aches and pains from training, or is that like a torn ligament or something? You don't really know. But I did find that like, whenever I've had like a little niggling injury and I'm not kind of certain of how to do it 100%, just stopping what I'm doing right then and giving it at least a week, because it feels when you're in the middle of training, that's another thing. It's about mindset. So if you're right in the middle of training, it's so hard to get into the motivation of training every day. And once you're there, to suddenly like stop.
It's really upsetting when something happens like that. When you're close to a goal as well, and you want to do well.
Oh, it's absolutely like gutting when it happened to me. Like, because when I was training, we just got back from Kilimanjaro, and I summited Kili, and I felt great the whole time. And I was like, Josh, this is great. I feel I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
Then COVID. So for the best part of a year, I did very little. I mean, a lot of people, like, everyone reacted differently to COVID. I think it depends how you entered COVID.
Yeah.
Because COVID started for me pretty much the moment I got back from Kilimanjaro. So I was kind of tired and a bit fatigued, and I was planning to have like a couple of weeks rest anyway. And that it never started again because of lockdown.
Yeah.
So then I started like training again and going out on the bike, which is my preferred way to train these days for cardio. It's just to ride the bike. And then my knee exploded. And then all of a sudden, because I'd got so, like, I was so pleased with my progress and I was so really happy, and then all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah.
A big part of it was actually trying to get past the negative mind space and stuff like that. You tend to beat yourself up a lot with stuff like injuries.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing as well with Jerome's question, I know they can be quite expensive, but I went to see an osteopath with my leg. After the marathon, I stopped running completely because I was in quite a bit of pain with my left leg. And I was lucky in the case that it was basically my hamstring was shortened a little bit, and then it was like everything had moved slightly, and that was causing the pain. It just took a lot of stretching, massages, that sort of thing, and I'm back to normalish now.
And you went to the ice chamber thing?
Yes, I did try cryotherapy as well. That was freezing.
Yeah. Did you find it worked? Did you find it made a difference?
To be honest, at that time, I think I was just in like I needed to do everything I could.
Yeah.
I would have tried absolutely anything. But yeah, I thought it was really good, and I felt good after coming out of there, but they needed more to be done, basically. But yeah, people swear by the cold baths, the cryotherapy, things like that. There's one not too far from us, isn't there? Like they've got like an actual it's like a chamber that you go into.
Yeah, you had to have 2 beanies, didn't you?
I did. I went in the first time, and I had some sort of like brain freeze. It was so painful, the headache. So I had to like knock on the chamber door for him to let me out, and he said it can happen. Give me an extra beanie.
How cold was it?
Fine. Oh, I can't even remember how cold it was.
It was a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like minus double figures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was freezing.
Yeah. You see, when I was using the knee, when I had the knee injury, one of the things that I had to deal with a lot was to manage the swelling.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to my knee, for those that don't know, and I'm pretty sure everybody does, was that I had a mountain bike crash, and I did like a number of different things to the knee, which was so awkward. I thought I broke my leg originally, and I was so devastated. And then looking back, I wish I had broken my leg, because it's a relatively straightforward fix to get right again, and it would have been a lot quicker. But at the time, I was just kind of dreading looking down and seeing my leg at a right angle and then having to get down. Anyway, so what I did do was I completely snapped my ACL, which had completely snapped and detached. So that was a bit of a nightmare. I tore some meniscus, which I think is like the shock absorber in your knee. That wasn't very good. And then because my knee hit each other, I had a fracture running up both sides of my kneecap, which was a nightmare because that meant I couldn't walk on it until the fracture healed, which meant that, it just got worse and stiffer because it wasn't being used. And one of the things that I was told to use, and I still own, was this compression knee support. So you put ice packs in the knee support, strap it on, and then you've got a little pump that you pump up and it just goes really tight.
All right,
And apparently it works really well. I don't know whether I actually benefited that much from the ice. After a while, I started to dread it because I had to do this like every day, especially after physiotherapy. So every time I just dread the ice. I don't know why, but it just started to really make my leg ache. But apparently it's really good. Something to do with the blood flow is drawn like inward. So it's constant, and I think it deals with I don't know whether the blood is drawn away from the area, which reduces swelling, because I'm not entirely sure how it works. I'd be interested to know actually. But I think I did do a lot of research about it, but it was kind of weird. And then another thing that I bought, which was really weird, was one of these like electrical impulses, specifically from a company called Knehab. That thing I actually think worked really well. Because one of the things that I was really struggling to do was like get the muscle firing.
Right.
Because all the apparently all the electrical signals from your brain to your leg to your muscle are all weird. Like it wasn't working. And still this one leg is like about an inch smaller than my right. So quite interesting. But
you've got to be extreme, haven't you? You can't just have a little injury.
I got away with it for years. I think it's always like I always like the two sides of my training. Like I quite like the chill, which is the mountains, the slow, the quiet, you know, seeing like awesome features, but you don't really get much of like a rush from that.
Yeah.
And I'm not so my rush and my adrenaline comes from mountain biking, and I got away with it for years. Loads of crashes where I'd like knock myself out, which isn't great to be fair.
No.
But
Stings a lot. Oh.
yeah, apparently, well, yeah. I mean, they say that getting concussions is bad, but you really want to not get them after you're 40. And my last one was at 39, so I figure I'm okay there.
Yeah.
And I haven't started slurring my words or anything yet, so that's okay. Yeah, so interesting. So I'll dive in a couple of questions. Obviously, if anybody's got anything they want to ask about injuries, about how you're actually recovering and things like that, yeah, me and Jody be happy to answer them. So the first one's from Josh Larkin, left a comment on the live stream announcement. What are our thoughts and opinions regarding training with a high altitude training mask? So interesting. So they don't help you acclimatize. That's one thing that's accurate. What it does is it just sort of makes breathing harder. So a lot of the information that I've learned about those masks, because I was very interested in them when I first started going to altitude, is that the process of going to altitude is more than just, you know, it's harder to breathe. There's physically less oxygen in the air because there's less pressure. So all the oxygen kind of moves apart, which means for each, you know, the amount of oxygen in any given volume is like a lot less. But when you breathe in through one of those masks, you're still getting the same amount of oxygen. It's just harder to breathe. That doesn't mean they have zero benefit. Obviously, they are good at sort of strengthening the cardiovascular system. It'll get you used to training whilst you're out of breath, because the feeling is going to be quite similar. For that, to be honest, I recommend running or cycling up a hill. Cycling up a hill is particularly, like, I think, really good, because you are, if you go on a really steep hill, you're going actually quite slowly, but your heart and lungs are working quite a lot, and it kind of feels to me how it feels when I'm at altitude. Like I'm walking quite slowly, but my heart and lungs feel like I'm running.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is one of those. I mean, I've seen a lot of people use them. Personally, I think if you are interested in pre-acclimatizing, there are ways that you can do it. I'd recommend getting in touch with the Altitude Center, where they actually have equipment down there that can simulate high altitude, in as much as, you know, it actually gives you less oxygen, and you can do a degree of pre-acclimatizing. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would look into.
Yeah, make sure you book your consultation. I had mine last week with the Altitude
Center. Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. They're free when you book a trip.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a little chat to, I think it was James from the Altitude
Awesome.
Center. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah, really good. Just had a chat about, you know, just training.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to pop down there if I can before Killy, but
you should do.
it will depend on time. But I'm hoping to pop down there as well. Yeah.
Just make it like a weekend to London or something, and go down there. You only need a few hours.
Yeah.
It is really good. I will say it is really good. I mean, when it comes, because there's two reasons you can go there. They do have an altitude chamber which is set to around, I don't know, 3,000 meters, give or take. So when you go in there, it's like being at 3,000 meters. It's, you know, and they do have some like treadmills and stuff, so you can do altitude training.
Yeah.
And then if you want to take it that step further, you can get like tents and things that you can sleep in or spend a certain amount of time in.
Yeah.
And they trick the body into acclimatizing. They work really effectively. Our trips, so all of the stuff that we do, particularly all of the treks, we always say that you can acclimatize on the trek. You don't need to go to that extent. But the biggest benefit I got from going there was just the knowledge that I did. You know, just what, because when you go to altitude, when I first ever went there, I was quite anxious because I'd never been to altitude before. Not even, like, I think the highest I'd ever been was Snowdon before I went to EBC. Hadn't even gone up.
Same as me now.
Yeah, and I was a little bit like what is like altitude? Like what will it do to me? You know, how do I know if I'm getting sick? You know, like, because sometimes you can get a headache or whatever, and is that altitude related, or is that just like dehydration or exertion? So going there gave me a big insight into, you know, essentially what altitude is, and we all know what it is logically, you know, or intuitively, you know, it's high, but also what does that mean for the amount of oxygen in the air? What does that mean when how does the body react? And just knowing all of that made me feel like so much calmer. Well, happy. Pratesh has joined. She said she was on a phone call. It's the same time every week, Pratesh. the same time every week. So you gotta do like 12:29. Okay, whatever, bye, and hang up. So yeah, awesome. Question here from Sa. Do you want to take this one too?
Yeah. So, do you know much about anemia and high altitude? More prone to altitude sickness, which makes sense. And throwing out iron tablets down my throat. So this is something that probably I need to look into a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I did struggle with anemia towards the end of last year, beginning of this year. It affected my training quite a lot for the marathon. Actually,
that day when you came in.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you left, I said to like Vicky, I was like, man, she looked like she was gonna die. He
didn't say anything at the time, but the next time I seen him, he was like, you looked so ill.
Yeah, because I'm a gentleman. But I remember you walked in and you were like grey, like an alien, and then you just sat there and you were like, something. So I was like, yeah. So when you went home, I was like, probably for the best. Like, we don't want to have to call the ambulance. So yeah, what happened with that then after?
So yeah, I do recommend, I don't know if you are already speaking to your GP in that, so they should be doing the blood tests to make sure that it's increasing. If you are taking iron tablets. But yeah, I don't know if the relationship with
so
but I know it gives you low energy, so it's just going to be, it's not going to be great for any sort of training.
I think anemia, that's just a low iron in the blood. So I think there is probably a correlation between altitude and anemia. Part of that I think will be exertion and dehydration. So whenever you get dehydrated, all of the important stuff in your blood will get lower. When you trek at altitude, you will start to dehydrate as you acclimatize. Even if you just sat there doing nothing, your body will use more fluids. You'll start peeing more just from being at altitude. So when you add in like quite high exertion levels and a lot of sweating, that can certainly make it more prone. And then I guess it depends if you've got a medical condition or something. Anytime you tend to go, altitude isn't a natural environment for us humans. We're supposed to live at sea level pretty much. We don't that's why above 8,000 meters they call the death zone, and we're on, although we're not that high, the symptoms of altitude start coming in from about 2,500, 3,000 meters. So yeah, to be honest, I would 100% go and visit two people. One would be, I would go to the altitude center to learn more about altitude. They know a lot about the physiological effects of altitude on the body, and I would go to maybe nomad travel clinics, speak to one of their guys over there. They know a lot about that. So yeah, and Sarah said less red blood cells, so you're going to struggle more. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would say we all know that the red blood cells carry oxygen around the body. So there's kind of two processes that kind of start to happen once you've been at altitude for a long period. This time, 2-3 weeks, and then it gets there. Is that your body will start producing more red blood cells, so your blood actually becomes quite thick and viscous. If you watch an interesting documentary about Richard Parks, a rugby player, he summited Everest, and then he went back to summit Everest without oxygen. And the whole point was he was going to be monitored by doctors the whole way up. And although he felt totally fine, they called his expedition off because his blood, and you see it when they're doing the test, it's like sticky and stringy.
Crazy.
And you're at risk of a stroke and things like that.
Yeah.
So I suppose if that, the converse can equally be true. If you have less red blood cells in your body because of anemia, then perhaps you're going to be, it's just going to amplify things. But yeah, without going into any sort of medical advice, I would say 100% if you do have anemia, I can see already that that's not going to play well with you at altitude, so get it checked. Another one I'm just thinking is diet as well.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly if you eat, like a diet that's kind of rich in iron, I guess, like a lot of red meat perhaps, and then you go to altitude and then you switch to suddenly being a vegetarian. It is something that I think I started doing after I started going to base camp. Is I have a lot more vegetarian meals. So it's not just such a shock to the system.
You can find her in sort of like, I think it's in like beans and different things. But yeah, I definitely I don't know if you prescribe the medication or anything, but I'd take iron tablets with you if there's something that you struggle with. But I would speak to your GP or the normal clinic about that.
Yeah.
To make sure you've got the the actual expert advice.
Yeah, awesome. Sar's using it as an excuse to have a steak dinner once a week. Do you know what? I think I might be anemic, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might be anemic today on lunch.
That's why I was like, I had Guinness as well.
Guinness, yeah. Everyone says that, doesn't it? I remember my sister-in-law, when she was pregnant, being told the only alcohol you're allowed is half a Guinness because it's good for the baby.
I don't mind a Guinness. Guinness and blackcurrant. Yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah, no, I had that for the first time fairly recently.
Did you?
I think I prefer a normal Guinness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like mixing too much. I don't even like Desperados, you know.
No.
Put tequila in my beer. But awesome. Yeah, Jerome is saying, I think I might be in the minority. Is it normal to have no high altitude symptoms? Anyone else there experienced this? It's turned into an altitude test, isn't it? As opposed to injury. I suppose altitude sickness is an injury of some degree. But yeah, Jerome, it's different every time you go. So, you know, I would say, you know, I'm quite similar in a lot of respects, in as much as every trip that I've gone on, I've never really experienced too much difficulty. I did when I went to Kilimanjaro, but I'd done base camp 4 times prior to that and didn't have a single problem. And even on Kili, I wouldn't say I had severe altitude sickness or AMS or anything like that. It was more, I just started feeling all of a sudden, like I woke up one morning and I was like, wow, low energy today. Even at the previous day, I felt fine. And then as I was walking up to Lava Tower, which is quite high, I started feeling a bit like, just a bit weird and a bit woozy, almost like hungover.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going down after Lava Tower. So logically, I was thinking, let's go down, spend the night at a lower altitude, and then see how I feel. But at the same time, I was like, I want to make the summit. So I did switch to taking Diamox as well. So yeah, that's what I did. I said my nurse many years ago in hospital used to give me a bottle of stout because it's iron content. Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can get iron supplements quite well, can't you? Yeah, but if you're going to be like literally prescribed Guinness, you know, I suppose other stouts are available. Yeah. So yeah, just going back to sort of injuries as well. So do you have any concerns? Because you're going to Kilimanjaro in a couple of months.
So I have changed up. I think the issue with my last training, as I was just saying, I had some health issues beforehand, and then I felt like I'd missed out on some of my training. And instead of just going back into it nice and slowly, I went from 0 to 100, running 5 times a week, trying to fit everything in, and then it just didn't go very well. So this time I am listening to my body more. So if I got any injuries, I'm stretching more. I've got a massage gun now as well, foam roller, and doing everything sort of, a little bit better in that way.
Yeah.
Also, with the exercise, I've switched it up a little bit more as well. Although I still do quite a bit of running, I'm going to the gym, so strength training, yoga, because that's all things that's going to help prevent the injuries as well. So I'm hoping there's, going well.
I think Zach is doing all of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
He's been telling me, we need to go training. I think he is pretty much started. He went for a run, didn't he?
He did. He did a park run last week, didn't he?
He did, yeah, he did. I was quite happy for him / annoyed. Because his first ever run, I think he's like ever pretty much done. And it took me about 6 months to get his time on a 6K. But then, I'm like 5 of Zach.
5?
Yeah, like I could, like, if I lost an arm, I think I'd lose more.
No, he did well. He played well.
Yeah, no, he did really awesome. Stuart Taylor said they're currently on a 5-week training plan with the guys at the Altitude Center, finding it's helping so much with the acclimatizing and breathing technique. Yeah, awesome. I've actually got a little breathing technique that I use. It's not very sophisticated, but I read it in some book. I can't remember. If I find the name, I'll put it in the chat. Where they talked about when you're trying to like catch your breath at altitude, there's a way to breathe, which is kind of like to sort of take a deep breath through your nose and then like force it out.
Yeah.
So I still do it now, and I usually find I'll do it like if I'm hiking or cycling and I just get to the top of a climb where you stop for a second, you're trying to catch your breath, I go like push it out, and I don't know why, but it like calms me down, like, and So I do think breathing techniques are really, really important.
Yeah.
Andy is he does it
I
straight.
like a good Wim Hof book as well. I'd like to.
Do you? Have you read
Yeah.
Wim Hof?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never read it.
Have you?
It's all about being cold, isn't it? I'm not interested. Like, I don't mind the cold.
It's not breathing as well.
Is it?
You don't have to just go in the cold. You can.
He seems pretty adamant, though.
Yeah.
Like,
he's raised by it, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm happy to get in cold water. You know, like I like cold
That's
water
another thing
dips.
we keep saying we're going to do as well.
I know. Do you know what? It's really hard though to get motivated to do it.
I know.
Like in the middle of the day, like generally speaking, if you're super motivated, you'll get up early in the morning and go and do it before work. I'm not that motivated to go and climb in a river.
No.
Just don't care enough. But yeah, we've got the aircon on now. That's kind of cold water therapy, I guess. But yeah, any other questions? Anybody's got? Oh, Stuart here. Yeah. That's the exact technique that they're suggesting. Interesting. Yeah, because I definitely read it in a book, but maybe the Altitude Centre said it as well, which is why it's at the forefront of my mind. Maybe. But honestly, it really, really does work. So if anyone, you know, wants to kind of practice that, I usually like find it best not when I'm in the middle of like a steep climb, but when I kind of stop for a rest and I want to like lower my heart rate and calm down. Doing that kind of works. Yeah. And it's something I think I very right at the beginning when I started going to high altitude started using, and now I use it all the time everywhere I go. Yeah, push it through pursed lips while ascending. Yeah, it's interesting. I'd love to know why that, how it works and the physiologically and stuff like that. And Pritesh, I heard you to take a breath on every step. Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it's a good idea to try and keep your breathing as steady and as regular as possible. Because, you know, if you're climbing and holding your breath or not breathing every so often, your heart rate will start to rise and it makes the recovery that much harder. So generally speaking, at high altitude, my aim is not to get to the top as quickly as I can or as, you know, push as hard. It's about keeping everything like on the calm. Yeah. It's always that easy because you are going to be mega out of breath and stuff like that. But always in the back of my mind, my aim is to keep things like on the level. Yeah. So when I'm hiking and training and climbing up high, it's all kind of ticking over like a diesel engine, you know, and it's just ticking me over that like that. And I find that if I approach things that way with that in mind, I'll naturally start breathing more and I'll be conscious of my speed and my pace. It does make a big difference. Actually, it's one of the things that a knee injury has actually helped me with. Yeah. Was I was always something of a faster hiker. Yeah. Physically being unable to do that for such a long period of time kind of taught me to like hang at the back and get used to it. And now it's kind of, I'm definitely slower because my leg physically just doesn't work as well, particularly on the downhills. But yeah, it has kind of taught me as well to change my mindset and things like that.
Yeah, we do a lot of in running. We do we call it sort of zone 2 training, where you purposely, like, it shows you on your watch where you are and with your heart rate, and to stay in the zone at all times, not to go over, under, and that is like usually like a comfortable level, and that builds up your cardio.
Do you know what? There's an interesting book out there. It's by Rich Roll, and he is a like an ultra athlete that kind of was sort of at the beginning of the uprising, not the first, but at the beginning of this vegan uprising. You know, when people started switching to a vegan diet. I can't remember what it's called, but I think it might be called Ultraman or something like that. Anyway, if you look up Rich Roll, it's his most famous book. It's a really good book. And one of the things he did when he started getting fit and started training for these ultras was his trainer told him, you know, your heart rate shouldn't go above whatever, 130. And then he found that to do that, he was walking like practically almost like a slow jog. Yeah. And, you know, other like, you know, less fit, less capable runners were just like blasting past him. And he said it was really hard to kind of just stick there thinking like, this is just pointless. I'm not getting any benefit. But he actually did say that if you just stick with it, it does pay dividends over if your goal is to do like long distance. Yeah. So yeah, that might be a good idea actually for training, to kind of like get some advice either from a personal trainer or someone that knows about it to do it more scientifically. I feel like I've always just
listen to your body.
Yeah, and just kind of like shot in the dark, really, like move more and eat less, and I should be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we should probably talk about some of the things you can do as well to kind of manage injuries on a trek. So once you're actually training again, once you're moving again, and you're confident the trip's going to happen, but you have that little worry in the back of your mind, there are certain things you can do to sort of limit the effects of an injury. One of the things that I can't exercise without now is a knee support. And sometimes people don't want to like start wearing them because then they feel like once you start, that'll be you forever. But if you're actually nursing an injury, there's no harm in just kind of giving yourself that little bit of extra help.
Yeah.
The knee supports, I think, make a massive difference for me.
Yeah.
One of the things they do that I just really appreciate is that sometimes, like, because then my knee isn't as stable at the end of a big hike, it aches. And that's partly because it's been perhaps moving around and like kind of like, I don't know why, it feels like it's squabbling for stability, where you put that knee support on and it holds everything nice and tight, and it just feels like how it should feel.
Yeah, well, if you're on like a stony trail or anything, it's going to be a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess footwear is a big one with stuff like that as well, isn't it? With having the right equipment sort of thing. Yeah,
made a big difference for me was switching my boots and insoles up.
Yeah.
So initially, and this is before my knee injury, I started going down this more cushioned approach. So thinking that like getting the most comfortable, spongy trekking boots was the way forward. And I bought some of those Hoka Ones and stuff like that. And granted, they're like walking on, cloud, but I did find that then they don't offer the support.
It's not for everyone, is it?
No.
I think it depends on how you walk, run, whatever you're doing. What sort of the bottom of the shoe, you know what I mean? What sort of thing you need at the bottom.
I think one of the biggest things that affected me was that like I'm not the lightest hiker. So going downhill, there's quite often like a lot of force.
Yeah.
And then if the boot isn't stable, my foot moved forward.
Yeah.
I noticed it big time on Ben Nevis,
right,
where we did the CMD route, and just on the way down, man, my feet were killing me because all day, every time my foot was pointed downward, my foot slid towards the end. And then I switched to like a stiffer leather boot, and then I put the Trekking Superfeet Trailblazer insole, and now it's like rock solid. It's just stillness.
Yeah.
And that's what I find works for me. It's avoiding those like little jars and stuff like that. Yeah.
Someone's saying now they've just bought the Active 360 you recommend for a while.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Yeah, they're my favorite ones. Like that's what I wear every single day. Like I've tried pretty much every knee brace there is to try. The reason I like these ones is it's sort of wetsuit material, like neoprene, but it doesn't slip down.
That's what I've had before. See, I tried before and I found that it's just been uncomfortable or slid.
I mean, it's all knee supports are quite annoying. One thing that bugs me is that they bunch up at the back of your knee.
Yeah.
It drives me mad. But this one does stay relatively in place. When you get the I don't know what material they are. I call them like sock material.
I know what you mean.
They will slide down.
Yeah.
With a neoprene, it gets very sweaty and horrible, but it just sticks in place. They're absolutely great, and they just provide that like nice tight feel of the knee.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tend to get looser or stretch or fall down.
Jerome was asking what leather boot would that be?
Actually, do you know what? It's a set of Scarpas, would you believe? No, I did switch to Main Boutons, which I actually moved on from now. I didn't get that sponsorship no matter how many times I mentioned them. But no, actually, they're still one of my all-time favorite boots. I absolutely love them. But I have always felt like when I first put them on, they're a little bit too tight. Once I start trekking in them, I don't notice it, and I don't get blisters. As soon as I put them on, I just feel like it just feels a bit tight. So I switched to a pair of La Sportivas Equilibriums. They were okay, but didn't quite get on with them either. They felt too tight. So then I switched again to a different set of Maindles called the Tonales, and they worked okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I had to buy a new pair of B2 boots because the Equilibriums were B2s, but I didn't get on with them. So I bought some Scarpa Manta Tex.
You tried them all out, did you?
I'm a degenerate. Yeah, honestly, I don't. It really bothers me the amount I've spent on boots.
I'm going boot shopping on Friday.
Yeah, that's the start of it. The problem is though that this is one of the things that's tricky about buying boots is that when you buy a pair, I generally am not capable of making a decision in the shop. Like the only way I really know whether I'll like them or not is by hiking in them, and then once you've done that, that's it.
Yeah,
you
yours.
Sell them like for the fraction of what you paid for.
Yeah.
I gave my Maindles away. I might do another giveaway soon. I've got so many boots to get rid of. I got those Hockers I could get rid of. I got a pair of La Sportiva Trangos I could get rid of. Yeah, I might do a giveaway soon. We'll see how I feel. We've got an Instagram giveaway currently going on at the minute. So if you guys want to check that out as well, Master the Mountains giveaway where you're getting like space on a training weekend, altitude center assessment. Is that right?
Yeah,
there's a few bits, isn't there?
And some
merch.
goodies as well. Yeah. Some water bottle.
It's a really good one actually. It's probably one of my favorite giveaways we've actually done. Don't get me wrong, I love the free stuff. But actually, if I was going on a trip, this is the one that I really want to win. Yeah, this is the one that I would that I'd be interested in. Another thing that I think really helps with injuries as well. You might want to get a pair. Actually, you're borrowing mine, aren't you?
I'm borrowing yours.
The trekking poles.
I know you were going to say
that. The trekking poles. Yeah.
Yeah.
They really do make a big difference. For years and years and years, I never ever bothered with poles. I just trekked.
Yeah.
Now I don't trek without them. Everywhere I go, I bring them.
Except for when I'm in Killy, you can't have to trek without them.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm anywhere. Actually, I don't know. I might be in Morocco.
Oh, are you?
Because we're going in. When are you going to Killy? What?
14.
I'll be back by then. Yeah. So I'll use them in Morocco and then you can have them.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, but they do make a massive difference, particularly for me going downhill. It's one of the times where I'm now. I used to be pretty good at it. Never the fastest going downhill, but now, God, I'm like an old man. It drives me mad. But the poles disguise that fact.
Yeah.
like without them, I've started twisting my body sideways and like stepping down. Which I never did before.
Yeah, no.
I was confident of going like face down, but now it's like I've got to turn like slightly in now so I don't in case I slip. But when I got the poles, I'm confident I can go forward again. So yeah.
You can't have another concussion, can you?
No, past 40 now. That's 40. It. Yeah, the more I'll get. I watched a Will Smith movie called Concussion.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's about like the effect that like long-term and multiple concussions have on like American football players.
All right.
And I remember thinking like, man, I've probably had about 4 in my life. But then these guys have like hundreds. Yeah. So I think I'm all right. But I have been like, this is another thing I've started doing as well, talking about injuries, especially as I've sort of started to like get a bit older. I've stopped being so reckless. Like I'll never do a bungee jump now.
Obviously, I'd love to do a bungee jump.
Those days are done for me. I mean, I'll still climb high mountains and ride mountain bikes and stuff. But now I tend to, keep my wheels on the ground and don't do anything silly anymore. I don't bounce like I used to. I hit the ground like a meteor now. It's ridiculous. Andrew's got, hey, I'm an old man. Man, I say old. We're not old, mate. We're not old. We're, experienced is what I like to say. Yeah. Pratesh, I need to get a trekking pole yet. Thanks for the reminder, Dave. Yeah, 100% get them. Pratesh, they're an absolute lifesaver, particularly when you're trekking at high altitude as well, because you'll see so many people leaning on their poles to catch their breath and stuff like that. Especially for going uphill, they make things a lot easier where you can use your arms to kind of like take some of the force, and then that keeps your legs nice and fresh for when you're going down. When you are going up as well, you can slightly shorten them because you're putting them like in front of you on a hill. When you're going downhill, you can lengthen them and put them out.
Yeah.
Especially, if you're going to, well, in fact, every trip, but Kilimanjaro on the last day, very slippery.
Yeah.
Very slippery. So you'll have to definitely use poles. Lots of times on EBC, you'll kind of be on like gravelly paths and things like that, and it's very, very slippy. Stuart Taylor, 53rd birthday on the start of my Kilimanjaro trek. Age is but a number. Absolutely right, Stuart. Absolutely right. Dewey or Dewi?
Dewi.
Dewi. I was going to say I've got a Welsh speaker here. Do you want to speak Welsh to Dewi?
No.
Because he must. Dewi Davis must speak Welsh. I'm not
Do you
having.
speak Welsh, Dewi?
Well, ask him in Welsh.
I think actually speak. I think actually Cymraeg.
There you go. Didn't you say the other day that you bumped into your teacher? She started talking Welsh to you.
And I was so flustered.
Yeah, you weren't prepared for it.
I wasn't.
She was probably like, oh, I'm wasting my time on Jody. She's forgot everything.
I know. Yeah. You've got to catch me in the right sort of zone.
Yeah,
Welsh now.
exactly.
It's been a long time.
So on a rugby day, after a couple.
Yeah,
you've just watched Wales win. Who have they beaten? England. Yeah, so then Wales are, then you'll get like a fluent Welsh. But awesome. Yeah, again, everyone's saying like the polls are really good. Pritesh as well with polls, you don't it's quite tricky. Like when you go to buy them, like you can pay a tenner or you can pay £200. My view is like you don't really have to get carbon ones. I had carbon ones before and I accidentally gave them away. Yeah, it's fine. But they were amazing and so light and really strong. One of the things I like, but it depends on how kind of heavy you are, I think.
Yeah.
If you're like quite light, it doesn't really affect it. But if I buy cheap aluminium ones, it's very easy for me to bend one, because if I lose my balance and it's like in a rock, it's a lot of weight to kind of bend it. The carbon ones stay like nice and stiff.
Mm-hmm.
But actually the ones that yeah.
All the time, that is. Though.
All the time.
Not like me.
Yeah. Do you reckon you just Google translated that? Or do you reckon that's legit? Yeah.
No, he's used the little trig like that. I think he's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah.
No, nice, very nice. Yeah. So wow, Pritesh is just over 10 stone. Wow. I think I was 10 years old the last time I was 10. I'd love to be 10 stone. You must feel like you're walking on the moon. Like the force of nature is just so light on you, It's like, with me, I just feel like everywhere I've heard is like, but yeah, awesome. I need to get Bride right. If you're old, Dave, I must be a dinosaur. No, mate, no, not old. I always jest. Ever since I turned 40, I jest. I tell you one thing that has happened. No, my car insurance has got cheaper. I just renewed now, and the only difference between this time and last time is I'm a year older. Amazing.
Looking forward to 40 then.
Yeah. I think we had a question there where someone asked, do our guys carry I think it was Pritesh actually. Do our guys carry first aid kit with them on EBC, or do we have to take our own? Yes, they do. So all of our guides will carry a first aid kit. In there, there'll be, the usual sort of stuff for like, slips, trips and falls. There'll also be medications in there for stuff that happens quite a lot. So upset stomachs, they'll have Diamox on them and lots of stuff like that. I always tend to bring my own, just like a little personal one.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, if I need a plaster, I'm perfectly happy sort of getting it and stuff like that. One thing I do say is if you do bring your own Diamox and stuff like that, and you are gonna take it, let the guide know first, because they need to know where everyone is, what they're on. So if they do need to help you, then they know exactly what you've taken already. And also, experiencing altitude sickness and you haven't taken any Diamox is a different situation to deal with than having altitude sickness and you're already on it. So how they'll react to you is like quite different and stuff like that. Awesome. I'm only 18-year-old, did you know? But I have terrible condition that makes me look 64. That's Jerome. Wow, Jerome, that is horrible. I think it's incurable as well, actually, because when I first met him, he only looked 62. And so I think it's actually getting worse. But yeah, poles, knee supports, all of that stuff makes a big difference. Just to recap again, boots as well. Sometimes if you're having trouble, like lots of aches and pains in places like your hips, your back, your knee, your ankle, anywhere, a lot of that can often be, solved by getting good boots and maybe some orthotic insoles or something like that, or just some good insoles that work for you. The super feet ones that I buy, the Trailblazers, they're at 40 quid, which is a lot for insoles.
Yeah.
But that's all I ever use now. So, and I'm just so used to them. It's brilliant.
With stuff like that as well, I swear by stretching as well.
Yeah.
And I know you should be warming up, cooling down, and I know that it's sometimes easier said than done. But yeah, I found if I've had like I had a slight hip issue before. It was only a really small thing, but when I was running, it was like I could feel it.
Yeah.
After a certain amount of miles, and then yoga, it doesn't have to be yoga, but just stretching in general, making sure that you are stretching all the muscles you're using. And I think people think as well, I've only been for a walk, do I need to stretch? You should definitely still be stretching everything to make sure that you know.
I'm not a stretcher, see. I should do.
You should.
I really should do, because I went to a chiropractor once and she told me that my spine was the stiffest she'd ever worked on. She had to get a colleague in to try and do an adjustment. She couldn't do it. Amazing. But I've known for a while that I've got loads of like weird problems that could be probably solved from a good stretch every day.
Yeah.
Like my hamstrings are too tight. That's a result of cycling.
Yeah.
So apparently it's a way that the hamstring contracts when it's not like fully stretched.
Right, okay.
So it actually shortens.
Yeah, that's what happened to me, yeah. And there was massages and stretches.
Really?
Was the answer, yeah.
It's mad when people say, can you touch your toes? And I can get my hands to about halfway down my shins.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like I'm so inflexible. Also my lower back as well. It's constantly feeling a bit tight. So I'm thinking about going to see this therapist that can do a lot of like treatments and stuff like that to try and gives you stuff to do to loosen it up. Yeah, you should really stretch before and after exercise.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, interesting, you see, because I read somewhere that someone said maybe not before.
You shouldn't do static stretches before, but there's still stretches that you can do, sort of a warm-up stretches.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a static stretch?
So this is when you're stretching, you know?
Yeah.
Like a static.
Yeah. But like, so
you know what I mean?
But a non-static one, is that like when you kind of do like a lunge and like stretch your leg or something?
Or you see when you see
like moving like that and stuff like that. Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Samantha said, my roomie when at EBC, Diane, stretched every evening. It really helped me. Also, deep tissue massage is good.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, yeah. Diane's she's really active, Diane.
Yeah.
She's constantly doing stuff. Derry said chub rub is a problem. I wouldn't know.
I don't know what you looked at me for.
I don't know, like I just but no, yeah. Jesus, if you've got it, I must be like. Do you know what I read for that? That antiperspirant deodorant.
Do you know, I did buy, it's slightly different, but I have issues with my sports bra sometimes, like obviously rubbing against the skin. And I bought, it is basically just powdery stuff. But it was like, you know, sold as a anti-chafing sort of thing. But it was brilliant. It was really good, yeah. And it wasn't a couple of quid. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, I've also heard, it's like antiperspirant deodorant is kind of good for that. One thing that I use, like I use it on the bike, but I don't really I don't suffer from the chafing too much, which I'm really happy with, because it seems to be a nightmare for those that do.
Yeah, it can be really bad.
And I don't even think it's related, like a lot of the time, because I see people like a lot smaller than me, like really suffering with it. But you can get what's called like chamois cream, which cyclists use. And it's to prevent getting like saddle sores and stuff like that. So what you can do is get some of this chamois rub and stuff like that, and like rub it on the inside of your thighs. It's a bit slimy and horrible, but it actually doesn't. It's better than Vaseline for kind of reducing the heat and stuff like that. Yeah, awesome. I did see another comment up there. Was it from Pritesh? Said, I was thinking of taking a small kit myself. I'm trying to avoid taking Diamox as I have an overactive bladder, dreading getting up in the night for a wee. Yeah, it is a bit of a nightmare. When I took it on Killy, I realized that I had to kind of get all my drinking done at least an hour before I went to bed to give myself the best chance of having the, an interruption-free night. But also it depends on how close you are with your roommate. Like sometimes, you could just pee in a bottle. Honest to God, like if you don't want to get up, particularly I'm thinking in places like Gorek Shep or on Kilimanjaro, when you've actually got to leave the tent, if it's like windy and horrible, like you just kind of go to the front door and just pee in a bottle. And I believe that there are certain apparatus that women can buy that helps pee in a bottle.
I think I'd have to just go to the toilets.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But also, like if you know, like I said, it depends on who you're with.
Yeah, I don't think me and Zach are that close.
Yeah, I don't think you and Zach are that close. Yeah, exactly. Where have you seen my apparatus? Yeah. Yeah, nice one. Oh, Marky B, he's off to Costa Rica next week. He travels an awful lot, that boy. Yeah. Yeah, and no fluids after 6 p.m. Yeah, I've got a wee bottle of Amazon, which I take with me. See, exactly. See the wee bottle. Yeah, so Diamox, it is a tricky one because you do start to pee a lot more. You do have to drink a lot when you're at altitude. So I'm 3 to 5 liters a day. 3 is a minimum. 5 is like, okay, that's kind of what I have because I sweat a lot. But it's more of a challenge to get that 5 liters done at least an hour or two before you go to bed.
I drink so much water as well. I like a pint of water before I go to sleep as well.
Do you? And you don't get up in the night? Youth. Youth. But yeah, like try some Diamox. You get up like 20 times in the night. It drives you mad. It is weird and it's kind of strange. It's there's no way around it really, and it depends really how. I think I'm kind of used to the disturbed sleep. I can almost get up and have a pee and go back to bed, and not have it really wake up.
Yeah.
But it can be a bit of a nightmare. I have heard some people have like nearly lost their minds, like where it's like you get a bed and it's like as soon as you get in your sleeping bag, you can feel it again. You're like, oh God.
It's not quite the same as going to the toilet in your own house.
No. Exactly. But awesome, guys. I think we're pretty much there now. So we've done a bit of an altitude / injury session. That's fine. Thank you everyone for kind of like coming on and sharing and stuff like that. It's it's really good to kind of like talk about these things, share our experiences, and also learn from you guys. I guess it's same time next Tuesday. Yeah. I got to avoid saying see you next Tuesday. Because that's naughty. But awesome, guys. Thank you very much. And see you next week.
Cheers.
This is the bit where like the